Hey everybody, Luke here. Okay, now as you see by the title below, you can tell that I'm not doing a top 12 or even a top 10 list this year. I mean, I would normally do that, but the thing is, I didn't see as many movies in 2017 as I would have liked. Like, for comparison's sake, in 2016, I saw, if my count is correct, 73 movies? That's a lot of movies. And because I saw a whole lot of movies that year, I decided to do a top 12 list. But for 2017, I saw at least 50 movies, if my count is correct on that. So, oh well. But for this year, because I didn't see as many movies, I decided to do a bit of a rapid fire review. Basically, what I'm going to do is go through every film I saw that got released in 2017 and go through them like that. Just to give a brief summary of my feelings on each film. And I'm going to do it all set to the music of Cuphead. Let's get started. It contains a wealth of really good elements, but it's just a shame that none of them come together to make a really satisfying whole. Best I can say about it is that the acting's pretty solid all around. There's a lot of impressive visual flair and interesting shots by Gore Verbinski, and the set design's pretty impressive at least. There's a lot of great action and plenty of visual flair to make Atomic Blonde immensely enjoyable, although it's really hard to look past the plot, which is chock full of double crosses, triple crosses, and false identities, all of which just make the film way too confusing to follow sometimes. It's thrilling, it's perfectly paced, and it's backed by a killer soundtrack that's woven smartly into each scene. Baby Driver is further proof that Edgar Wright is one of the best directors working in the film industry today. It's enjoyable enough, but it changes so little from the animated version that it may as well not even exist. And so it's redundant at best and totally unnecessary at worst. In fact, the new songs and plot elements that are added really don't add anything to the film overall. That and the audio mixing is pretty bad, especially during the musical numbers. It's funny, real, and heartfelt every step of the way. The Big Sick is a wonderful rom-com full of great performances and directing, with themes of culture and ideals clash. It's also my favorite film of 2017. Its slow, methodical pace may not be for everybody, but it's worth it to experience an engrossing narrative that builds upon the themes of the previous Blade Runner film. The visual effects are just gorgeous all around, and they're made even better with Roger Deakins' masterful cinematography. The acting's great, and the musical score is just intense. It's a totally confused, 90s-esque family film with boring characters and an even more worthless story that you're likely going to forget about not long after you're done watching it. I mean, I guess Naomi Watts and Jacob Tremblay give passable performances, although for them it doesn't really help that some of their writing can be unintentionally silly. It's a January horror movie, which means it fails to be scary at any point and is instead actually pretty stupid. It really doesn't help that it has one of the worst titles for any horror film, let alone any film period, and especially the first scene. It's just as laughably bad as the title itself. Although, I guess it's not the worst horror film I've ever seen. It's no The Gallows, that's for sure. It's a solid love story with beautiful scenery and great performances all over. Especially Timothée Chalamet, who's quite the revelation in his first leading role. I will admit, it was kind of awkward watching the movie, but that might just because I'm a straight guy. It nails the style of the books with great animation, while successfully appealing to audiences of all ages with both juvenile total humor and clever meta humor. And Ed Helms is perfectly cast as the title character. A beautifully animated adventure with good performances, plenty of great visual design, and a solid story about the importance of family and following your heart. And I will admit, I came really close to crying at more than a couple of points. And Remember Me is a great song, both in its thematic context and really just in general. A funny, fascinating profile of one of the strangest bad filmmakers of our time. And James Franco is just absolutely fantastic as Tommy Wiseau. And you know, everybody else is good too, although they're not as good as Franco. An outstanding war movie in all areas of its production, its direction, and musical score. It's kind of a shame I couldn't get attached to the characters though. Oh well. And I should admit, the plot structure is actually kind of confusing at first, but it is pretty simple once you think about it. It doubles down on every problem with the first 50 Shades of Grey movie, with being even more boring, with worse performances, and having an even worse soundtrack. And as a bonus, it comes with pointless subplots that end just as quickly as they begin. It plays out like the most bog-standard horror film you have ever seen. It's kind of like the movie The Lazarus Effect, except with all the interesting ideas and decent chemistry sucked right out of it. And instead, it gives us forgettable characters and worthless performances. Michael Keaton is good as Ray Kroc in this biopic on how he swindled the founders of McDonald's. The dialogue and directing are pretty solid. Not much else to say about the movie though. An idiotic and boring disaster movie whose only purpose is to demonstrate why we stopped making disaster movies in the first place. Still not as bad as Roland Emmerich's 2012 at least. An unsettling Stepford Wives-esque horror film with solid racial and social commentary in it. It also has some decent black comedy, the performances are great, it's expertly paced, and its musical score is actually used pretty well. Feels like a really long, strange night. One that's worth experiencing all over again, with interesting directing and great use of visuals. And it's got Robert Pattinson's best performance. Serviceable songs accompany this movie about P.T. Barnum, whose story fails to engage on an emotional or an intellectual level. And I'll give it this, the performances are pretty solid all around, though if I have any personal gripes, which don't really affect the actual quality of the film, is that the music honestly sounds a little too modern for my tastes, and for the period that the film is set in. Even if it's not as good as the first Guardians of the Galaxy, this still manages to be a really fun and enjoyable blockbuster summer movie. And I will admit, I really enjoyed the family dynamic between Peter Quill and Ego. A pretty familiar story, made better by its solid directing and simulates great performance, and its themes of old age and past glories. Although admittedly, its slow pace may not be for everybody. An incredibly underwhelming horror movie without a single decent scare. Although I will admit the performances are actually pretty good, mainly from all the child actors. The only one who wasn't good was Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, who actually ends up being far more unintentionally funny than not. Oh, and it also gets the Conjuring 2 award from me, for the film that audiences and critics loved, that I did not. A tense and dark horror film filled with paranoia, dread, and some great performances. It's solid summer horror with an apocalyptic tone. A sequel that built upon the great action of the original with some excellent scene choreography and direction. One that's plenty of bloody fun and that which knows how to pace itself very well. A mildly enjoyable, if disposable, superhero team-up film that completely lacks a consistent tone. And it really doesn't help that it spends more time introducing the other characters than actually, developing them or making anything else interesting in the film. It really doesn't help that Steppenwolf is a really lackluster villain. At least the performances are solid. And it's better than Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, at least. That's for sure. An uninteresting and uninspired plot, one of the most hack editing jobs ever of the year, and some of the worst action scenes of 2017 make this one of the worst movies of 2017. Though the first Kingsman is better, the sequel is still a pretty fun movie, with better action than some films nowadays. Although I will admit, Poppy is a much worse villain than Valentine was in the first movie. It plays a lot like an old school creature feature, with plenty of solid CGI. Performances were pretty fun, especially John C. Reilly, and the climax was actually pretty entertaining. An outstanding coming-of-age movie with plenty of great performances, especially Laurie Metcalf and her career best Saoirse Ronan. And it's a fantastic directing debut for Greta Gerwig, and I especially liked its realistic portrayal of adolescence. A really funny and entertaining family film with great animation, action, and voice work, even if it's not as clever as The Lego Movie. And I guess Batman's character arc was solid enough. A great final film for the Wolverine character, with great action and strong themes of growing old and sick and the passing of the torch. And Hugh Jackman gives his best performance as Wolverine. Oh, and the girl who played Laura was pretty awesome. An intriguing historical character study that doubles as a solid old school adventure movie with lots of beautiful cinematography. And Charlie Hunnam is great in the lead. A deliberately paced, well-acted treatise on the nature of man and his relationship with nature and religion, with an insanely tense climax too. And it sees Aronofsky building on themes that he explored in Noah. A completely forgettable action-adventure movie whose awful effects are matched only by its forced attempts to create a cinematic universe. Oh, and Tom Cruise is hideously miscast in the movie, and he gives the worst performance in it by far. Though everybody else is actually pretty bad too. It's plenty enjoyable, with great animation, a decent plot, and some fine songs. And the performances were pretty great too, including Emily Blunt as Tempest Shadow. It's too bad that Tempest Shadow herself is a thoroughly underwhelming villain. A pretty standard blockbuster movie that is only mildly enjoyable, although it is far too derivative of the other Pirates films, and so they really should not make another one. Oh, and Salazar is a really weak villain too. A dumb and silly popcorn movie that's pretty harmless all things considered, although it suffers mightily from an inconsistent tone, and its special effects are kinda lackluster. Yet another awful Christian film with some of the worst apologetics in the whole genre, most especially concerning the problem of evil. I mean, at least it has passable performances and some pretty good cinematography. In spite of that, it's the worst film of 2017 that I saw. A stunning looking film with a weird and fantastical aesthetic, with a great musical score, and great performances, especially a mute Sally Hawkins, who gives the best performance of her career. A hideously edited, meaningless narrative, and uninteresting characters make this movie a complete chore to sit through. And it really doesn't help that they apparently couldn't film 10 to 15% of their screenplay, which means some plot points either get dropped all of a sudden, and other plot points just spring from nowhere. It's exciting, it's entertaining, and Tom Holland gives us the best of both worlds, being both great as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And Michael Keaton's pretty great too as the Vulture, and he ends up being one of the only good villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A well-paced horror thriller that sees writer-director M. Night Shyamalan finally making a good movie again. And James McAvoy is fantastically versatile at playing multiple personalities. And Anya Taylor-Joy is just as good in this movie as she was in The Witch. My only actual problem with the film's narrative is that the flashbacks to the main character's childhood don't really seem to have much of a point. It builds upon what makes The Force Awakens work, and it throws in plenty of surprises to keep you on your toes. It has plenty of great action, and it has a solid, though admittedly repetitive plot. And it has interesting themes of passing the torch and past sins. It's much better than the other two Thor movies, and it manages to be just as fun and enjoyable as some of the other Marvel movies. Although admittedly, I didn't find it as funny as a lot of other people did. Although I will say, I did definitely enjoy the interaction between Hulk and Thor. A solidly directed, darkly comic examination of what justice should or should not be. And it's elevated by great performances from everybody, especially Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell. Perhaps the worst of the Transformers movies, with some of the most amateurish filmmaking I've seen in a long time, right down to having the worst editing of any film from 2017, and never even having a consistent aspect ratio. All the performances are completely awful, as are the action scenes. Best I can say about it is that at least I didn't have to give Bay my money this time. Expert pacing, storytelling, and a great performance from Andy Serkis make this an outstanding conclusion to this new trilogy of Planet of the Apes films, one that further builds on the themes of the past two movies. Really, my only major complaint with the film is Steve Zahn as Bad Ape, who feels like forced comic relief. A decent plot, plenty of enjoyable action, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman make this not only a solid origin film, but also the best film in the DC Cinematic Universe so far, even though it is thoroughly formulaic. Well, that was every movie that I saw in 2017. What did you guys think? Be sure to comment in comment box below. Tell me some of your thoughts on all the movies I just saw. Or maybe even some of the movies that I didn't even see. And believe me, there were a lot of movies that I really wanted to see. I didn't have the time to. Dealt with school and work, all that, I know. But I'd say, I don't know, depending on how 2018 goes, I don't know if I'll see more movies than I did last year. Maybe less, I don't know. But who knows? Maybe I'll do this again. Do a rapid fire review. Or maybe I'll do top 10s again. But I don't know. Again, it really depends on how 2018 goes. Although I probably could do this again. This was definitely much different from what I normally do. Who knows? But anyways, leave a comment below. Be sure to subscribe. And I will see you guys later. Here's to 2018. Take care.